Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, Greg here, founder of www.wrestling-divas.webs.com, your source for highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in the professional wrestling industry. Thanks to everyone for tuning in via blogtalkradio.com for another exclusive interview on behalf of my website. I would like to welcome in the new year with this exclusive interview. I have a very special guest joining me here today. She has been a professional wrestler for over 8 years now and is also a personal trainer and a certified nutrition expert. She graduated from the New York Institute of Technology with a degree in biology and is a former 7th grade bio teacher in LA. Fans will recognize her as Toni the Top Allegro from the wrestling program Wrestlicious, which broadcasts internationally all over the world. So I'd like to welcome my next special guest, Nikki the New York Knockout. Hi, Nikki. How are you?
Hi, that was some introduction. Thanks. You did your research, man.
Yeah, I know my wrestling, and I wanted to give you a proper introduction. So
thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime.
Well, the first thing I noticed when I read up about you is that you were always a fan of wrestling while growing up. You were very athletic. You had lots of scholarships in baseball and softball while heading into college. But what was your source of inspiration for actually telling yourself that you wanted to become a professional wrestler? Why professional wrestling over something else that is in the field of athleticism and sport?
Well, I'm sure you hear this answer a lot, but I really enjoy the whole athletics/entertainment part of it, that it mixes together, because when I was in high school, I always was playing basketball, or softball, and then, I could never be in the drama club or the Shakespeare club or all those things I wanted to do because I always had sports. So, I just always had this entertainment side of me, and that's kind of what intrigued me. So basically I figured I'd try it out.
So when you first went into training, I'm sure you had a lot of expectations, but when you actually went through the process, were those expectations changed really fast? Was it a lot more physical than you first thought it was going to be?
Actually, throughout the years, it has changed. Like when you first go in, I'm not speaking for everybody, but a lot of people think, oh, I want to be on TV. I want to get into the WWE. And I knew it was going to be physical, but, I have a high tolerance for pain. I love, being physical, and it was tough. It's tough for everybody, but it's one of those things where you have to stick with it. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to train, and then you train for a month, and you say, okay, I'm going to take a few weeks off. You just have to keep doing it. Your body basically builds up a callus to it, and you just got to stick with it. I think that's the most important part. It's been 9 years, and I still train every week, so you just have to keep at it. But, from what I've heard, it was pretty much what I thought it was going to be. It was going to be a lot of work, and, I was up for it.
So a lot of fans recognize you from your gimmick, the New York Knockout gimmick. You've always been, with the exception of Wrestlicious, the New York Knockout Nikki. And even then in Wrestlicious, you still stick with the Italian mafiosa kind of wacky gimmick.
Yeah.
So what was your inspiration for that character?
For the New York Knockout?
Yes.
I think a lot of wrestlers kind of derive their character from a little bit of who they are. And obviously, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm a New York girl. I'm kind of, from what I've been told, I can come off as intimidating, especially out in California where, it's kind of like a different vibe out here. So probably about 2 years into it, I got the name from a promoter. He just called me the New York Knockout. And then I just kind of stuck with it because it seemed appropriate. I like to knock people out, and I'm from New York. So I actually got it from somebody else, and I just kind of stuck with it.
So you mentioned that the beginning of your training process that you have these expectations of where your career is going to go, and over time, that changes with certain accomplishments and hurdles that you have to overcome in this industry. A lot of people, when they first start out, think that, you're going to eventually get to WWE if you work hard enough, and they find out really fast that their chances are very slim. So keeping that in mind, what keeps you going despite the fact that making it to a big company is very small?
Well, it's funny you say that because, it's something that a lot of the newer people don't understand. And I didn't understand it when I first started because all I wanted to do was be in the WWE. But I just remember one of my trainers saying, girls usually don't make it because it takes an average of 6 years for a worker to get a job and to be considered in the business. And I just remember my 6th year coming around and being like, what's going on? I'm working hard. I'm doing the best I can. But when you realize that WWE is just basically, it's almost like getting cast for a movie. Like if your look isn't going to fit the part, it has nothing to do with your wrestling skills. If your look isn't going to fit the part, then you just doesn't fit the part pretty much. And then when I started, I discovered lucha. I got to go to Mexico. I got to go to Japan. I just recently went to Lebanon, places like that, just traveling the world, things I wouldn't do unless I was a pro wrestler. You kind of start to appreciate it more. And, at this point, it doesn't really matter where I make it or what company I work for. I had a blast doing Wrestlicious. I met a lot of great people. I'm currently working for probably one of the biggest indie promotions in the country, which is Lucha Vavoom. Not a lot of people know about it because it's kind of like a burlesque/lucha variety show, but it's the greatest promotion I've ever worked for, and I'm just having so much fun with it, you know what I mean? So who's to say I was supposed to be in WWE or TNA or wherever? It's just kind of like I'm having fun with it. I'm traveling. I'm doing things that I never thought I'd be able to do. And it kind of opened other doors for me. When I kind of realized, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be in the WWE. Maybe I don't have the right look. Maybe I'm not what they want, but that's okay because there's just so much more you can do out there.
So you mentioned, just a minute ago that WWE certainly has a look that they seek in a performer regardless of talent because, they're on TV, they broadcast every week. The girls need to be, good looking for the audience to enjoy. Do you approve of the kind of mold that the WWE is looking for, seeing as all these wrestling fans constantly see these girls on TV? Do you think that the look that they're promoting is a positive role model for all these aspiring young fans out there?
To be completely honest, I'm not, I don't really watch the WWE anymore, but, from what I hear, I know that clearly Beth Phoenix and Natty Neidhart, if I were, if they were in WWE when I was growing up, when I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old when I was watching it, they would totally be more of the role model that I would look up to. I don't know. As far as women in general aspiring to be wrestlers, I think think it should be more focused on being being the total package. As far as who the WWE chooses, that's what they want for their product. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I know it's discouraging for a lot of indie female workers. And I hear a lot of complaining about it, but I don't understand why people watch it so much and then they complain about it. It's just turn your TV off. That's why I'm not really into it. But, like I said, it's a company, it's a product. Clearly they're doing very well. So if those are the type of women that they want in their company, it's obviously working for them. I wish they would hire more of the indie workers, because there's some amazing girls out there that I'm sure if WWE fans like don't know about them, if they saw them on TV, that they would probably really love them. But it is what it is right now. I mean, I was a fan. I watched it, back when it was Jacqueline and Lita and Molly Holly, and the women's wrestling division was solid. And now it's kind of like models doing flippy things. So, I mean, it is what it is. But at least we still have like the Natty Neidharts and the Beth Phoenixes that we can look up to and strive to be. That answer was kind of all over the place. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's no problem. You mentioned that you've traveled all over the world wrestling in places like Mexico and Japan, and I'm sure that must have been a very worthwhile and educational experience for your career. In Mexico and in Japan, and any hardcore wrestling fan would know this, the product that they bring out is totally different than that of the USA. It's a bit more serious, and they treat wrestling like, a tradition or a discipline, depending on where you go in the world. But what was that experience like for you, and how did it differ from wrestling in the United States, in your personal opinion?
First of all, I love, Mexico is probably my favorite place to wrestle, because it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of, the fans are there. They treat it like a religion, and they appreciate the fact that you're there entertaining them. So the crowd's always great. They're just, it's a great time all the time in Mexico. Japan, it's the same thing, but in a different way. They're very more respectful. Like, they'll watch and clap, and it's a lot of respect. You don't have people so much screaming and cursing at you like they do in the States. But it's different like that. I'm not saying I don't like to wrestle in the States. I mean, it's the same thing, but I noticed that it's more fun for me to wrestle in the States in front of, let's say, like a non-wrestling crowd, if that makes any sense. Like for Lucha Vavoom, we get a lot of like the hipster crowds where they don't know how do I explain this? They don't know kayfabe, so a lot of the wrestling fans these days, because of the internet, know a lot more about wrestling, even if they're not workers. So in the States, to wrestle in front of a non-wrestling crowd is more fun for me. But in Mexico and, in other countries, everyone kind of suspends their disbelief more, and they're more into it because they love the reality of it, if that makes sense. Same thing, I just went into the Middle East, and I didn't even know there was pro wrestling in the Middle East, but the crowds were amazing. They were just hated the bad guys, loved the good guys, and I mean, the crowds are great.
So when you're working a match, and especially when you're on the independent scene, there's a good chance that your match won't be recorded. You're just performing in front of the crowd that you're in front of, and that's it. So how do you make the best of being present and being in the moment, and making sure that each moment of your match or something from your match is really memorable?
I mean, it's kind of like being, in a play or being in live theater. That's not getting recorded. It's not going to be on TV. It's not going to be on the big screen. But you have to, whoever's there, if it's 2 people or if it's 2,000 people, they're there to watch you entertain, and that's what you do. And I love wrestling so much that and I have a huge arsenal, and I'm always trying to be, make myself better in each match, and make myself, be inventive and use new stuff. So it's kind of like, I mean, I don't see it as hard. The adrenaline just comes, and it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not something that's, I mean, clearly it's easier to wrestle in front of more people, or if it's on TV, but it's just something you love to do. I can go to training tomorrow night and just have a match in front of nobody and just go all out. So it's kind of like, it's just kind of in me to do, and I challenge myself to do what I can do pretty much to entertain the crowd.
So this may not be the case for you, but for many female workers in this industry, it's a big goal for them to perform in front of the fans and have the fans look above the standards of their looks and look more towards their athleticism, just treat them like any other competitor. So, I mean, how do you stand out in this industry and make sure that, you know, your looks aren't the deciding factor of whether or not a fan likes you?
Well, fans are going to be fans, you know, period. I mean, some people are out there to look at chicks, and some people really appreciate women's wrestling, so you can't really change their minds. But, you know, for myself, I feel like being the total package is kind of like, and total package, I don't mean like supermodel, you know, diva girl, but I mean like strong in shape, you know, trained, you know, just kind of like, I mean, I'd rather be looked at as somebody that's like, wow, that girl could really work. Wow, she really has a presence, rather than, oh, she's got a nice ass. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I think a lot of the women in wrestling that have been in it for a while and are really dedicate themselves, they want that too. They want to be respected. But then you have some girls that are just in it to get attention, you know? I mean, it's like that with everything. So I categorize myself as somebody that would rather somebody appreciate their work. But, you know, I still try to make myself look pretty. So I feel like it's a little of both.
Whenever I interview someone seasoned in wrestling as yourself, one of the hardest things in wrestling is to really be unique, especially with your moveset, because the moves that you do can't really be innovative because you may do something in a certain way and have that be, you know, unheard of, but the move that you do will always stem from another move that's already been created. So how do you create a diverse moveset that kind of tunes itself and molds itself into your character? I mean, what would be the advice you would give for someone who is starting out?
I would say watch a lot of Japanese women's wrestling and Mexican women's wrestling, like CMLL and AAA. I train with Los Luchas, who I think is like one of the best tag teams I've ever seen. They're just amazing. And they constantly add to my arsenal. If I say, okay, how do I do this? How can I give me some submissions, give me some leg submission? I mean, they can just show me. So training with a lot of different people, working with a lot of people, and then just watching a lot of good wrestling. You know, not so much WWE, you know, that kind of women's wrestling, but more like I said, like Japanese. I'm really enjoying watching. I'm actually working with Estrellita from CMLL next month, so I've been watching some of her stuff, and it's amazing, some of the things that they can do. So that's pretty much my suggestion. Just find who you want to kind of model yourself after, and then just watch a lot of videos.
I would be completely remiss if I didn't bring up this subject again, but you stated that you really enjoy watching Wrestlicious, and for those or being a part of Wrestlicious, excuse me, for those of you who don't know who are listening, Wrestlicious is a nationally televised wrestling program that is broadcast all over the world on digital cable and is hosted by the legendary manager, Jimmy Hart. It was started by Jay Vargas, who won the Mega Millions jackpot back a while ago. You were Toni the Top Allegro, and you appeared in a lot of episodes, and me being the wrestling geek that I am, I watched every episode of this first season. I had to.
Awesome.
It was kind of catchy, and watching the gimmicks was fun, even though if it was a bit corny in some people's opinion. What did you think about that experience and wrestling in a ring that had pink ring ropes and wrestling against, people who had unusual gimmicks, and what did you take away from an experience like that?
I mean, it was probably the most fun, or one of the most fun times I've had in wrestling, because I mean, people will look at it and say, oh, it's taking women's wrestling a step back. It's like, no, it's not. It's just fun. It's goofy. Take it for what it is. I got to dress up in a mafia outfit and do a rap. You know what I mean? How funny is that? I think that's hilarious. I used to watch Glow when I was, 4, 5, 6 years old. And if you look at the quality of the matches that a lot of the indie workers were in, I mean, they were good matches. So it was, most of it, was good wrestling. So just to be able to work with some girls that, I've only watched and heard of and never actually seen. It was my first time working with Christy Ricci, which was pretty cool. And, it was just a lot of, there was so much talent. I've never been in a locker room with that much women's talent. It was kind of it was just really cool to be around girls that respected the business so much. So hopefully that comes around again and we'll have that again.
Yes, hopefully season 2 will get started with production soon, even though it's been
before
a very
I
long
get
time.
Too old and retire.
Well, you seem very dedicated to this, and you seem to always keep going no matter what's in your path. But will there ever come a day when you say, enough, I can't do this anymore? Because it can be frustrating a lot when you're dealing with injuries and you're doing a show and, expenses add up for travel, and, indie wrestlers don't make a ton of money. So, and any indie worker knows that. So will there ever come a day when you, hang up your boots or whatever the term is?
The day that I stop having fun is the day that I will stop wrestling. I think I've just, for the past 5 or 6 years, I'd say, after I kind of stopped worrying about where I was getting with this, I've just been having fun. And, I don't do the shows that I have to drive 6 hours for. I don't do you have to, when you're in it for 9 years and you start feeling the little kinks in your neck and things like that, you kind of get to pick and choose who you want to work for and how, and whether you want to do those shows. So I'm kind of more careful about my bookings now, because I don't, I don't want to wind up overdoing it and then getting hurt or just being at a show that I just don't want to be at. So I pick and choose, but I don't know. I'm having so much fun with it right now. I can't even tell you. I can't even, it's not my whole life, but it's a big part of it right now. And like I said, if I stop having fun tomorrow with it, then I'm done. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So before we wrap up, if you could explain your experience in wrestling using just one word, what would that one word be?
Oh, gosh.
I know, tough question.
You got to give me a few seconds to think about this. I would have to say just different, I would say, because everybody I know in my outside life is just so different. And, outside the business, nobody gets what I do or, what I've been through. So I think I would go with different. But I think if I had more time to think about it, I might come up with a better word.
Well, how can fans stay in contact with you and send fan mail and keep up to date with your schedule with wrestling and whatever you're up to?
I have a Twitter account. It's NY Knockout. And I also have a Facebook page, which is NY Knockout. I do have a website that will be launched in about 2 weeks, and I don't want to give you the website yet because my webmaster will kill me. But it's got a lot of good stuff. It's got, my fitness and nutrition stuff and also my wrestling and boxing stuff. And I will be putting that out on Twitter and my Facebook. I will be advertising my website when it gets launched. So there it is.
Well, Nikki, thank you so much for your time. This was a great interview to start off 2012, so I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me anytime.
Well, thanks to everyone else for tuning into this interview. If you missed it, don't worry. You can replay it here on blogtalkradio.com or you can upload it to YouTube. Be sure to visit www.wrestling-divas, and that's dash as in hyphen, divas with a Z, .webs.com for more content, and be sure to follow Wrestling Divas on Twitter at Wrestling Divas with a Z at the end. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and I'll be sure to keep you updated with more interviews and content very soon.